The church bells echoed across the city as expensive cars lined the entrance of the luxurious royal palace wedding hall. Inside, workers rushed to complete the final decorations for what everyone called the wedding of the year. The groom, David Anderson, a wealthy businessman in his early 30s, stood proudly in front of a mirror, adjusting his designer tuxedo. His best man smiled. "You've invited half the city." David smirked. "I want everyone to see how successful I've become." Then his smile grew colder. "And I invited one more person." His best man looked confused. "Who?" David picked up an elegant invitation card. "My ex-wife." Years earlier, when David had nothing but debts and broken dreams, only one person had stood beside him. Her name was Sophia. She worked 2 jobs to help pay their rent. She skipped meals so David could eat. She believed in him when nobody else did. But as David's business slowly became successful, everything changed. Money transformed him. He started attending luxury parties, buying expensive cars, meeting powerful people. One evening, he came home carrying divorce papers. Sophia stared at him in disbelief. "Is this a joke?" David didn't even look at her. "I've outgrown this life. You deserve someone better." Sophia whispered through tears. "No." David replied coldly. "I deserve someone richer." A week later, the divorce was finalized. David walked away with his fortune, leaving Sophia with nothing except heartbreak. Rumors spread quickly. People said she had disappeared. Some believed she had become homeless. Others claimed she had left the country in shame. David never cared enough to find out. Now, 3 years later, he held her wedding invitation in his hand. Across the front were the words, "Your presence would mean everything to us." He laughed. "Oh, she'll come. And when she sees what I've become, she'll finally realize what she lost." Little did David know. The woman he planned to humiliate was about to arrive with a surprise no one at the wedding would ever forget. 3 days later, the wedding hall buzzed with excitement. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead as hundreds of guests filled the room, dressed in elegant gowns and expensive suits. David stood proudly at the entrance, shaking hands and accepting congratulations. Every few minutes, he glanced toward the main doors. Not because he was waiting for his bride. He was waiting for Sophia. His fiancée, Vanessa, noticed his distraction. "Are you expecting someone important?" David smiled. "My past." Vanessa laughed. "The poor ex-wife you told me about?" David nodded. "I want her to see exactly what she lost." Across the room, several guests whispered, "I heard she couldn't even afford rent after the divorce. Someone said she's been struggling for years. I almost feel sorry for her." David overheard every word. Instead of correcting them, he smiled. Suddenly, the sound of engines echoed outside. One luxury car stopped at the entrance. Then another. Then a third. The conversations inside the hall came to a complete stop. A brand new black Rolls-Royce Phantom slowly pulled onto the red carpet. Every guest turned toward the glass entrance. Photographers instinctively lifted their cameras. The chauffeur stepped out first. He walked to the rear door, then opened it with quiet elegance. A graceful woman stepped out. She wore a breathtaking white designer dress with a long flowing coat. Diamond earrings sparkled beneath her neatly styled hair. She looked calm, confident, radiant. David's smile disappeared instantly. "Sophia?" Before anyone could recover from the shock, 3 identical little children climbed out behind her. 2 boys. 1 girl. Each about 2 years old. Perfectly dressed. Holding each other's hands. The entire wedding hall fell silent. Guests stared in complete disbelief. David could barely breathe. Because the woman he expected to humiliate had just become the center of attention, the wedding hall remained completely silent. No one could take their eyes off Sophia. The woman everyone expected to see broken now stood with quiet confidence. The three little children stayed close to her, holding her hands. One little boy looked around curiously. "Mommy, why is everyone staring at us?" Sophia smiled softly. "Because sometimes people are surprised by blessings they never expected." David slowly walked toward her. His voice trembled. "Sophia. You look different." She nodded politely. "It's been 3 years. People change." David glanced at the children. His face turned pale. "There." Sophia answered calmly. "My triplets." The guests exchanged confused looks. Vanessa stepped closer to David. "You never told me she had children." David couldn't answer. His eyes remained fixed on the little boy whose smile looked strangely familiar. Trying to hide his emotions, he forced a smile. "I never expected you to become so successful." Sophia looked into his eyes. "Neither did I. But life has a way of rewarding people who refuse to give up." Just then, an elderly gentleman in an expensive navy blue suit entered the hall. Every important guest immediately stood up. Whispers spread through the room. "That's Mr. Richard Bennett, the billionaire investor, the founder of Bennett Global." Instead of greeting David, Mr. Bennett walked directly toward Sophia. With a warm smile, he opened his arms. "My daughter. I'm so happy you came." The room froze. "Daughter?" David stared in disbelief. Mr. Bennett gently hugged the 3 children. "And my beautiful grandchildren." Gasps echoed across the ballroom. Years earlier, after her divorce, Sophia had unknowingly helped an injured elderly man during a storm. She stayed with him at the hospital for days without asking for anything in return. That man was Richard Bennett, a lonely billionaire who had lost contact with his only family decades earlier. After months of searching old records and taking DNA tests, he discovered the unbelievable truth. Sophia was the granddaughter of his long-lost brother. He had welcomed her into his family. Not because she needed money, but because she had already proven the kindness of her heart. David felt the room spinning around him. Everything he believed about success had just fallen apart. The wedding hall was silent. David stood frozen. His expensive suit, his luxury wedding, his years of showing off. None of it seemed to matter anymore. Richard Bennett placed a reassuring hand on Sophia's shoulder. "I've built companies worth billions," he said calmly. "But I've rarely met someone with a heart as kind as hers." He looked directly at David. "Do you know how we met?" David slowly shook his head. 3 years ago, I collapsed during a storm. People walked past me. But Sophia stayed. She spent 2 nights at the hospital with a complete stranger. She never asked my name. She never asked if I was wealthy. She simply wanted to help." The guests lowered their heads in silence. Richard continued. "When I later discovered she was my family, I offered her everything. But she accepted only one condition." Sophia smiled gently. "I wanted to earn my own success." Richard nodded proudly. "So instead of giving her money, I made her the director of our charitable foundation. Today, she helps thousands of struggling mothers and children every year." The ballroom erupted into applause. David felt his throat tighten. He slowly walked toward Sophia. "I'm sorry. I was blind. I thought money made someone valuable. I threw away the best person who ever loved me." Sophia looked at him with calm eyes. I forgave you a long time ago. But forgiveness doesn't mean life goes backward. She glanced at the three smiling children. My future is here. At that moment, one little girl reached up and held Sophia's hand. Mommy. Are we going home now? Sophia smiled. Yes, sweetheart. Richard Bennett looked around the ballroom one last time. Never laugh at someone because they're struggling. You have no idea what tomorrow has planned for them. As Sophia walked toward the exit with Richard and the triplets, every guest stood to their feet. Not for the groom, but for the woman who had proved that kindness is worth far more than wealth. David remained standing alone in the middle of the ballroom. For the first time in years, he realized he hadn't lost Sophia because she was poor. He lost her because she deserved someone who valued her heart. Outside, the black Rolls-Royce quietly drove away into the sunset. Inside the wedding hall, no one remembered the wedding. Everyone remembered Sophia.